Hello everyone, welcome to Infra Experts. Today's topic is MySQL User Management, and I'm choosing this topic on demand basis from one of our subscribers. So this I would like to urge all, if you are having any doubts or if you want me to make some videos, please do let me know. I will try making those videos, although apologies that it might take some time for me to post them due to my time constraints, but I will still try to post these videos. So in MySQL user management, what all things we will be seeing in today's session? The account usernames and passwords, user and host values, reserved accounts in MySQL, authentication plugins, privileges provided by MySQL, list users in MySQL, how to change a password for a MySQL user. There are many multiple ways in which you can change. And then the last is create and drop users. So account usernames and passwords. This MySQL stores accounts in the user table of the MySQL system database. And an account is defined in terms of a username and the client host or host from which the user can connect to the server. And an account may also have authentication credentials such as password. So you might have password, you might not have password. Means without password also you can log into the MySQL if you define like that. The credentials are handled by the authentication plugin. We'll be seeing this authentication plugin as we go ahead with the course. MySQL supports multiple authentication plugins. Some of them use built-in authentication methods, whereas others enable authentication using external authentication methods. Creating users with limited permissions on the database is one of the easiest and reliable ways to increase MySQL security. And MySQL enables the creation of accounts that permit client users to connect to the server and access data managed by the server. The primary function of the MySQL privilege system is to authenticate a user who connects from a given host and to associate that user with privileges on a database such as select, insert, update, and delete. Additional functionality includes the ability to grant privileges for administrative operations and to control which users can connect. Each account can be assigned authentication credentials. The user interface to MySQL account consists of SQL statements such as create user, grant, and revoke. So this is the user and host values. The MySQL privilege system ensures that all users may perform only the operations permitted to them. As a user, when you connect to a MySQL server, your identity is determined by the host from which you connect and the username you specify. When you issue requests after connecting, the system grants privileges according to your identity and what you want to do. So MySQL considers both your hostname and username in identifying you, because there is no reason to assume that a given username belongs to the same person on all hosts. So as you can see from this infra, this user is having the host value of this. So this user will be connecting from h1.infraexperts.com, and another one is there, infra percentage. So this user is different to this user. Also these infras are, everything is different. So I will just go one by one. I will come to this afterwards. Let me come with the infra users now. In here, percentage. So what does this percentage mean? That infra can connect from any host. So if you are given a percentage, so from any domain, any host, it can be connecting. Let it be local, let it be external, anywhere. And here also, like same, anywhere from infra expert domain, infraexperts.com domain, it can connect. So any host which is there in the infraexperts.com domain, it can connect. Similarly in here, any x.example dot any domain, means it can be .com, .co, .in, .co, .uk, whatever, etc., etc. So from anywhere it can connect, which is having x.example in it. And this user infra can connect only from this specific IP address. In here, again, you can see the percentage is there. So which means any host which has 192.168.100 class C subnet can connect. And here it is like the same, this example. And right now let us come to this. So in here, this means if nothing is specified between this, so with this means that from any user from this host can connect from h1.infraexpress.com. Similarly, since within the single quotes nothing is mentioned, so any user from any host can connect for this. I hope you understood what I'm trying to explain in here. So let us proceed with the next. Reserved accounts. So one part of the MySQL installation process is data directory initialization. And during this data directory initialization, MySQL creates user accounts that should be considered reserved. So one of them is root@localhost. This you cannot say as reserved, but this is used for administrative purposes. And this account has privileges, has all the privileges. This is a system account and can perform any operation. So as I said, this account name is not reserved, in the sense that some installations rename the root account to something else to avoid exposing a highly privileged account with a well-known name. So next, mysql.sys@localhost. This is used as a definer for sys schema objects. Use of this mysql.sys account avoids problems that occur if a DBA renames or removes the root account. This account is locked so that it cannot be used for client connection. MySQL.session@localhost. This is used internally by plugins to access the server. And this account is locked so that it cannot be used for client connections, and the account is a system account. MySQL.info schema@localhost. This is used as a definer for information schema views. We already spoke about information schema in our previous examples. So use of this MySQL.info schema account avoids problems that occur if a DBA renames or removes the root account, and this account is locked so that it cannot be used for client connection. So let us go to authentication plugins. So when a client connects to the MySQL server, the server uses the username provided by the client and the client host to select the appropriate account row from the MySQL.user system table. The server then authenticates the client, determining from the account row which authentication plugin applies to the client. So if the server cannot find the plugin, an error occurs and the connection attempt is rejected. Otherwise, the server invokes that plugin to authenticate the user, and the plugin returns a status to the server indicating whether the user provided the correct password and is permitted or not. So some of the authentication plugins are like native pluggable authentication. So a plugin that performs native authentication, that is authentication based on the password hashing method in use from before the introduction of pluggable authentication in MySQL. So MySQL_native_password plugin implements authentication based on this native password hashing method. We will be seeing this in our lab. A plugin that performs authentication using SHA-256 password hashing, and this is stronger encryption than that available with native authentication. Client-side clear text pluggable authentication. So a client-side plugin that sends the password to the server without hashing or encryption. And this plugin is used in conjunction with server-side plugins that require access to the password exactly as provided by the client user. PAM pluggable authentication. So PAM means pluggable authentication modules. So a plugin that performs external authentication using PAM, which is pluggable authentication modules, enabling MySQL Server to use PAM to authenticate MySQL users. And Windows pluggable authentication. This plugin performs external authentication on Windows, enabling MySQL user to use native Windows services to authenticate client connections. Users who have logged into Windows can connect from MySQL client programs to the server based on the information in their environment without specifying an additional password. LDAP pluggable authentication. This performs authentication using LDAP, which is lightweight directory access protocol, to authenticate MySQL users by accessing directory services such as x.500. Kerberos pluggable authentication, which performs authentication using Kerberos to authenticate MySQL users that correspond to Kerberos principles. No login pluggable authentication. This prevents all client connections to any account that uses it. So use cases for this plugin include proxied accounts that should never permit direct login but are accessed only through proxy accounts, and accounts that must be able to execute stored programs and views with elevated privileges without exposing those privileges to ordinary users. Socket peer credential pluggable authentication. This authenticates clients that connect from the local host through Unix socket file. FIDO pluggable authentication. This authenticates MySQL user using FIDO authentication. And the last but not the least, test pluggable authentication. This checks a test plugin that checks account credentials and logs success or failure to the server log. And this plugin is intended for testing and development purposes and as an example of how to write an authentication plugin. So the default authentication plugin. So in MySQL 8, cache-in underscore SHA-2 underscore password is a default authentication plugin rather than MySQL native password, which was the default in MySQL 5.7. So in MySQL, as of MySQL 8.0.27, which introduces multi-factor authentication, there can be up to 3 clauses that specify how an account authenticates. The rule that determines the default authentication plugin for authentication methods that name no plugin are factor specific. So let us go to our lab and check how to see what is the default authentication plugin for us. Okay, so here we are. So how will you check the default authentication plugin? Show, it's the same thing, show variables like and then percentage plugin percentage. So for me it is default authentication plugin is MySQL native password. Why is it so? The version is this, but still why is it so? Because if you see from here, the default authentication plugin, I have mentioned it as MySQL native. So I have changed it. If I was not mentioning this, then the default authentication plugin would have been cache-in underscore SHA-2 underscore password. Okay. So how will you check how many plugins are there? I have spoken about many plugins right now. Okay. So how will you check those? Plugin name, plugin status. From where do we need we can check it? From information schema. Dot plugin. So these are cache in SHA 256, MySQL native password. So these are the password plugins available, and you can see the status also from here, plugin status. Now if I create a user right now, let's say create user, let me show what all users are there right now at first. And this thing should be plugin, it should be plugin. Let's see in here, these, as I said, these are the reserved users, main reserved users. That's why it's taking the MySQL 8 default authentication plugin. But I mentioned this one also as a reserved user, which I also said that it's not actually this one. See, it took the one which we mentioned in our CNF file. So it is MySQL native password, right? So now if I create one user, in which authentication plugin will this get created? Create user infra @ localhost. Okay, identified by MySQL. What do you think? Where this will get created? This will be created in the default one. This is the default, right? We've mentioned. So this will be created over here. Let's see. See. Now let me create one more user which can log in globally, but with the plugin as caching SHA-2 password. So what's the syntax for that? I will mention in this syntax in my blog. So now let's see. See this one. The plugin method is different. So if you want any user to be created in another plugin method than the default one, this is the syntax which you need to follow. Okay, so let us go back to our PPT. The privileges provided by MySQL. So the privileges granted to a MySQL account determine which operation the account can perform. That's from the name only, the privileges word only we can understand. Privileges can be set globally for an entire database, for a table or routine, or for individual columns in a table. Certain privileges can be set at certain levels, and this MySQL privileges differ in the contexts which they apply and at different levels of operation. So administrative privileges or the global privileges, this enables users to manage operation in the MySQL server, and these privileges are global because they are not specific to a particular database, and privileges are granted using *** for this level, and these privileges are stored in the MySQL.user table. The database privileges, unlike MySQL, the administrative privileges where it is we need to mention with ***, here it will be dbname.star, and these privileges can be granted for specific databases or globally so that they apply to all databases. And these database privileges include privileges to create tables and functions, as well as privileges for tables, functions, and procedures in the database. And these are stored in MySQL.db table. And privileges for database objects such as tables, index, views, and stored routines can be granted for specific objects within a database, for all objects of a given type within a database, or globally for all objects of a given type in all databases. So there are static and dynamic privileges. So what is a static privileges? MySQL supports both static and dynamic privileges. Static privileges are built into the server. They are always available to be granted to user accounts and cannot be unregistered. And dynamic privileges can be registered and unregistered at runtime, and this affects their availability. A dynamic privilege that has not been registered cannot be granted. For example, the select and insert privileges are static and always available, whereas dynamic privilege becomes available only if the component that implements it has been enabled. So the server maintains the set of registered dynamic privileges internally in memory, and unregistration occurs at server shutdown. And these dynamic privileges apply only at the global level. So some of the common privileges, all privileges. This permits all privileges to a new user account. Create enables the user account to create databases and tables. This drop enables the user account to drop databases and tables. Delete enables user account to delete rows from a specific table. Insert enables the user to insert rows into a specific table. Select enables to read a database, and update enables to update table rows. So let us see some of the privileges practically. So we have these, and if we want to see any privileges, how will you see it? So privileges for, so this is not the syntax, my bad, this should be grants. So it is having just grant usage privilege. Okay. Similarly, if I take this one, so this is also having this one. So star dot star means globally for across all databases, right? As I said. Now let me just create a database first. Okay. I can just revoke this privilege from here since usage is already there, and I can just go ahead, grant, create, select, insert on. Let me give the DB name as this dot star 2, and now let's see. So it is there. So we cannot, you can see here, we cannot revoke this usage. Okay, but it will be able to perform operations only on this infra database. Now if I give this as star dot star 2, see, right now it changed to this, because in here I gave the permission only to this database, so it can go ahead in here for usage purposes only. So when a user is created, they are merely granted one row privilege. That's why it is there. Okay. So in here, since I gave privileges to just a database, that's why both are showing. But here I gave privileges for to this user at the percentage for all databases. That's why the grant usage privilege is currently not present over here. And then to flush the privileges that are assigned to a user, we need to do this flush privileges. Now let us go back to our PPT. List users. To manage a database in MySQL, you need to see the list of all users account in a database. People assume that there is a show users command, but it's not like show users command. So select user from MySQL.user. This will be, let us proceed, let us go to the lab and see. So select user from MySQL.user. It's showing all the previous users. We already did it once. See, select user host plugin from MySQL user. So if you can just describe MySQL.user, you will be getting what all things you need. Like I needed user host. If you want something else, these things you can just see from here. Now if you want to see a current, let us give describe user. No database is selected, so for that let us select use infra and then describe user. See, table infra.user does not exist. Why? Because there's no table, that's why. But now let me go out and log in back again, and now if I want to see which user it is connected to, this is one of the method, or select current underscore user. Okay, now we made two users, right? Let me log in with infra, and now just see, current user is this, select user. Now let me do one thing, drop user. Let me just log out, log in with this. Since we have infra at the localhost and infra at the percentage both with the same users, so it will be difficult to understand. If I'm logged in, login with infra at the localhost, that's why it's showing like this. But if it's the percentage also should be logging in from here, right? So let me just drop this user first. Drop user. Okay. Now let me just log in again. And now let's see. Select user. What does it show? It shows infra at the localhost. But as in here, select current user. Will that also show infra at the localhost? I already deleted it, right? It should not show. See, infra at the percentage. So the current user I'm logged in as infra at the percentage, and I'm logged in from this host, which is a local host. That's why it's showing like this. I hope I'm able to make you clear what I'm trying to explain over here. If I am logged in from xyz.infraexpress.com, it should be showing infra@xyz.infraexpress.com, but in select current user it will be the infra percentage, which is the actual user. And how do you change passwords? So we can change password with the update statement, set password, and also alter user statement. So the command is like, take the database name, use and the database name, and then log into the database, and then update user, then set password, and the password name you need to give in there, where user is the username. And alter, that is very easy, that you can understand how to do. So which is alter user, then username at the rate hostname identified by this. So that is the easiest one. And next comes drop users. You can drop a single user, also you can drop multiple users. So how will you drop multiple users? Let us see that. Let me create another user right now. So right now I have just infra percentage. Okay, let me create one more. Create user test at the rate localhost identified by MySQL. Okay. So if you are dropping a single user, so drop user this, then done. But if you are planning to drop multiple users, how will you do it? Drop user, then the username. What is the username? Infra. I'm going to drop infra and test, right? So infra at the rate percentage, and then the next one would be test, right? So nothing, just give a comma over here and take this. Let me take it from here and then just enter. So with which user I'm connected right now? See, I'm connected with this. That's why the operation failed. And I was from this user itself, I was going to drop my own user. Also, it doesn't have the privileges. Now let me just drop it. So it's dropped. And let's check. So it is dropped. So that is all about, means if I start explaining, it will be taking, it will be a long session, and each and every topics is very difficult to cover also. So these are the basics of user management which you should be performing in your day-to-day life. So those only I have covered in here. I hope this should be beneficial for your academic careers. Thanks a lot for watching the video. Please do let me know if you have any queries, and please do like, share and subscribe. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye bye.